Warning, do not watch this alone. This is not a myth. This is not a rumor. What you are about to hear happened during the Second World War, and even now, many records say it never existed. In the late 1930s, in occupied China, a facility was built behind guarded walls. No signs, no names, no official purpose. But the locals noticed something strange. Trucks would go in full, loaded with supplies and people. They always came out empty. People went in, but no one, not a single person, ever came back. The place was later known by its code name, Unit 731. This facility wasn't just secret. It was erased from existence before it was even fully built. Unit 731 did not appear on any military maps. Mail sent to anyone stationed there vanished into a black hole. The workers, from doctors to janitors, were sworn into a lifetime of silence, their families often unaware of what their true work was. Even the nearby villages were forbidden from speaking its name, the threat of disappearance hanging over them. Inside those walls, the prisoners who were brought there were stripped of everything, including their humanity. They were no longer called people. They were called logs. They were objects, materials for experiments. Things meant to be used up and discarded. The whispers began to spread among the locals, carried on the wind like a foul scent. They said screams could be heard at night. Not loud, wild screams. They were controlled, stifled, and then they would be suddenly cut off. An unnatural silence would follow. They said strange smells filled the air, a sickening mixture of metal, chemicals, and something organic, something burning. The guards assigned to the facility rotated often. Many requested transfers, their faces pale and haunted. Others were never seen again, absorbed into the very machine they were supposed to be guarding. The rumors claimed the logs faced horrors that defied imagination. Prisoners were deliberately infected with the plague, cholera, and anthrax to study the progression of the diseases. Some were taken outside in the dead of winter, their limbs frozen solid, then thawed to observe how the flesh would rot and fall from the bone. Others were cut open while fully conscious. No anesthesia, no mercy. The goal was to study organs while they were still functioning. When the screams finally stopped, a profound silence would return, as if a switch had been flipped. At dawn, the floors were washed clean, ready for another day. By the early 1940s, even the regular soldiers stationed nearby began to avoid the facility. They said the air around it felt wrong. It felt heavy. It felt like it was watching you. A cold dread seeped from its walls, a palpable sense of suffering that clung to the very soil. And then, the tide of the war began to turn against Japan. The Allied forces were closing in, and the people inside Unit 731 began to prepare, not for a final stand, but to disappear, and take their secrets with them. As the war drew to its inevitable bitter end, a frantic order was issued from the very top. Burn everything. Destroy all records. Leave absolutely nothing behind for the victors to find. In the final chaotic hours, prisoners were systematically executed. Entire buildings were dynamited, reduced to rubble and ash. Mountains of documents, filled with unspeakable details, were fed into roaring bonfires, the smoke carrying the secrets of their cruelty into the sky. History itself was being actively, deliberately erased, even as it was still happening. This wasn't just about hiding evidence. It was an attempt to pretend it never happened at all. The goal was simple: to create a void, a black hole in the historical record where a nightmare once stood. They wanted to ensure that the stories of the victims, their suffering, and their very existence would vanish with the flames, leaving only silence and speculation in their wake. It was a final, desperate act of cowardice, a last-ditch effort to sanitize an atrocity by wiping it from the pages of time. After the war, when the world was supposed to be healing and rebuilding, something deeply disturbing and cynical occurred. A great number of the individuals responsible for these horrors were never punished. They never stood trial. They never faced justice. In fact, for many, the opposite happened. Some were actively protected by the very powers that had just defeated their nation. Some were even rewarded, given new lives, new identities, and positions of influence. Why? Because their knowledge, born from unimaginable suffering, was considered valuable. The data they had collected through their monstrous acts was deemed too useful to ignore. So, a dirty bargain was struck. Justice was traded for silence. Accountability was exchanged for scientific data. The families of the countless victims were never told the truth. They were left to wonder, to search, to grieve in a vacuum of information, while the architects of their pain walked free, their secrets safely locked away. It was a chilling testament to how easily morality can be compromised in the name of strategic advantage. Today, the site, the ground zero of this horror, still exists. It stands as a haunted, skeletal ruin, a scar on the landscape that refuses to heal. Over the decades, visitors who have dared to walk its grounds report a consistent and unsettling series of experiences. Many describe a sudden, inexplicable wave of nausea washing over them, a physical sickness that seems to rise from the very soil. They speak of an oppressive, unnatural silence that blankets the area, a quiet so profound it feels heavy, as if the air itself is thick with unspoken tragedies. The feeling of being watched is a common complaint, a prickling on the back of the neck that suggests unseen eyes are following every move. Some even claim to hear faint whispers, disembodied voices carried on the wind as it whistles through the broken, crumbling walls of the remaining structures. Others have sworn they heard the sound of footsteps on gravel paths where no one is standing. The local guides, people who have lived in the area their entire lives, hold a deep-seated fear of the place. They will lead tours during the day, but they have a strict, unbroken rule. They refuse to stay after sunset. When darkness falls, they believe the land truly remembers. And then there are the rumors, the persistent stories that cling to the site like a stubborn fog. These are tales that have been passed down for generations, whispers that refuse to die. There are rumors of sealed rooms deep within the compound, chambers that were bricked up in the final days and have never been reopened. What lies behind those walls is a subject of grim speculation. People talk of human remains, buried hastily beneath layers of fresh concrete to hide the evidence of the final purges. They whisper about experiments that were so depraved, so far beyond the pale, that they were never even committed to paper, their details living on only in the fading memories of those who participated. There's a local belief, a piece of folklore that feels chillingly plausible, that the land itself absorbed the immense suffering that took place there, that the earth became a sponge for pain, agony, and despair, and it has never let go. This might explain why, even to this day, animals seem to instinctively avoid certain areas of the former compound, sensing a wrongness that humans can only vaguely feel. Let's be clear, Unit 731 wasn't just a facility. It wasn't just a military base or a research lab. It was proof. It was a terrifying, undeniable demonstration of how far human beings can fall, of the depths of depravity we are capable of reaching when we believe no one is watching. There were no monsters here in the fairy tale sense. There were no demons with horns and claws. There were only people, doctors, scientists, soldiers, and guards who learned how to turn unimaginable pain into a daily routine. They learned to compartmentalize, to see other human beings, not as people, but as raw materials for their research. They turned suffering into a 9-to-5 job. This is the most frightening part of the entire story. The horror wasn't committed by some otherworldly evil. It was the product of human choice, human intellect, and human indifference. It's a stark reminder that the greatest monsters often wear human faces. This story was buried on purpose. It was intentionally hidden, scrubbed from official records, and denied for decades. Not because it was fake, not because it was an exaggeration, but because it was terrifyingly, indisputably real. And the powerful people who knew the truth wanted it to stay hidden. This account serves as a final, chilling warning. Some horrors don't end when the war does. They linger, they fester, and their consequences ripple through time, affecting generations. The silence that followed was just as damning as the acts themselves. Don't let their stories be forgotten again. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark before it's too late.